Welcome guys to the features video. Today we'll be running you through a series of parameters and giving you an idea as to, from the handbook itself, what exactly that means and a bit of a talking through the different ways in which you can optimize Arya to work to your benefit. Now, firstly, you'll see from the screen here, we just take Arya, drag and drop that straight on. Now, you can see that there are 4 steps outlined within the parameters 1 through to 4. Now, we use these to really optimize Arya and our trading strategy. So naturally, they're going to be different for every index or commodity or currency pair that you are trading. And again, you can customize these as per the time of the day. Now, we'll look into the first one. Step 1 is just looking at the trade direction. You know, up, down, long, short, buy, sell. So the positions, you can see this here. You can have exclusively buy, exclusively sell, or visual mode, which will just highlight 2 buttons to buy or sell directly on the graph, and you'll be able to choose without having to reopen the parameters themselves. I'll click down through there. Now, the entry logic time frame, this allows you to choose on which time unit you want to have Arya to enter the position. So this means that even if you have the graphic of H1 open, let's say you're on an hourly chart, but you want Arya to take into account some of the fractals of M5, this can be done in this little section here. So again, that will allow you to take into account whichever time position you want to enter in, irrespective of your graphic. Now, the entry pip buffer, that allows you to shift your market entry point by X amount of pips. So that could be if you just want a little buffer to make sure that your the trend is going in the right direction. Now then, thirdly, we would then have the entry type. This entry type, automatically, it's put on automatic, and this outlines the entry position which Arya will take herself. So she will look at the fractals in order to confirm that there is in fact that trend, and she will then enter based upon the optimum position for you. So just as a reminder, a fractal is a set of 5 candles with a confirmed higher or lower, and it's on that higher or lower that Arya will place the conditional order. And if the market returns to that point, then obviously Arya will execute the trade for you. Or for those of you trading things like price action or who want to get into the market as soon as possible, you can do that at market execution. And the final is a limit order. So limit order, if you fill in the limit price just in this section here, that will have Arya enter the position whenever it is that you want that to happen. That will be a fixed stop loss, and only the fixed take profit can be used with this limit order mode. Come on to that a bit later. Now, with step 2 on the money management, this is really where you're managing that money and risk. So you can see, firstly, the most prioritized parameter here is the risk per trade. So that can vary very much from 0.125 right up to 2%. And that naturally is the percentage of your capital that you want to risk per position. So naturally it's recommended that you don't veer too far into becoming very aggressive, but equally you want to try and see some gains. So we'll set that, let's say, at around about 0.75. Now, the max loss daily, this is where you begin to control, is set at 2% of the account balance. Now, that is really just outlining the maximum amount per day to which you can lose on all combined instruments. Now, Arya will only take into account those closed positions on all your instruments. But this is where the psychology really comes into it, and you begin to bring that discipline into your trading strategy. So naturally, keeping that as 2% per day, it prevents that revenge trading. Make sure that if you're having a bad day, you can come back tomorrow and absolutely smash it. But you've got to make sure that you have that psychology and discipline, most importantly. But this again is reflected in If you do have a particular strategy and you want to follow that through onto your max profit daily, you can control your max losses weekly, max profit weekly, again monthly, and then it follows into consecutive losses. So if we just quickly take max profit monthly, that as a percentage, anything from between 1 and 20%. And as I mentioned, it's exactly the same format for those consecutive losses, except that's numerical and not as a percentage. So you can see that there. Now the equity calculation, that allows you to take into account all of the open or closed positions relative to the percentage gains and losses. So this falls in line and is in line with your previous parameters. So if you choose true, and this is very important, you must choose it for all the assets that you trade at the same time. Otherwise, it won't work. Now, if you choose false, Arya will only take into account the calculation of the closed positions where you've made a gain or a loss. Now, as you see us moving through into step 3, this is where we begin to really take into account the trade managements. That's more so the entry point and also the stop loss. So we begin to customize these. Now, we'll look firstly at the stop loss type, that of which there are a few. The first is fixed. That is something that you will then enter within this box here. If we look through and decide to go for a volatility, this is where you choose very similar to the size of a t-shirt. You have small, medium, large, or extra large, right up to triple XL. So these are calculated by Arya herself on the volatility of that given day. Put that through onto small, for example. Now, the other type of volatility or stop loss type that we want to take into account is the day high or low, and that will put your stop losses placed on either the highest or the lowest defined point according to the day before. However, it does check every minute as to whether there's a new high or new low on that current day. Now, with a U stop loss, this is where Arya calculates an optimized stop loss compared to a U-shaped curve. Now, price, when we move on to this parameter, that will allow you to enter the price at which you want to exit from the position by compelling the stop loss in the price field. So that we can put down in. Now, if we move on to the stop loss pip buffer, this allows you to shift the stop loss by a few pips, as for the entry pip buffer that we mentioned earlier, exactly the same, and works in conjunction with the stop loss day high and low and U stop loss. So this parameter here, you can just enter that as a nice buffer for yourself. Now we're moving further on to the type of take profit. Once we've covered off our stop loss, we know exactly how we want to kind of get ourselves out. We're now going to optimize the way in which we get into the trade itself. So firstly, we will look at the take profit type. Now there are 3 of these. Firstly, we're looking at the profit factor. So the profit factor, if you choose a profit factor of, let's say 2, and you want to risk 0.5% of your capital, then you risk 0.5% of your capital in order to earn 1% of your capital. Now, that's so on. Risking 1%, you then have a profit factor of 2, you're earning 2%, etc. And that is just outlined here, where you would enter that parameter in. If we look then at the smart take profit, Arya will detect the next appropriate terminal, whether that be pivot point, resistance or support, to place the take profit. Now, it automatically shifts to the one above or below the entry point if the entry point is too close. Now, you can choose in automatic option in the smart take profit. In this case, Arya will search for the next available terminal and choose directly the terminal that will suit yourself. When we run through this parameter, we click on automatic, you can then see there are a series of different points to which, as I mentioned, would be the terminal that's best. Now, with a smart take profit buffer, as you can see just under here, that allows you to offset the take profit by a few pips, just in the same way as the entry pip buffer or the stop loss pip buffer. And now we move on to the next parameter, being the take profit price. So that allows you to enter the price at which you want to take the take profit position, and that will work again in conjunction with the take profit price. Now, as you can see, moving down into the trailing mode, this is where we begin to get quite fancy with some of the stop losses and really begin to customize these with your specific trading strategy. So it could be that where you have your educational content from, someone might have recommended, or you might be seeing that this is a slightly better way to do things. Now, the trailing mode itself, if we look through, there are a number of different options. Firstly, we have the fractal. Now, I mentioned earlier exactly what the fractals are, and when you activate this mode, this trailing stop loss will take into account the previous reverse fractals to boost your stop loss. Fractal Plus works very similar to the fractal above, but will only take into consideration the fractals that are in your profit zone, i.e. between your point of entry on the market and your take profit itself. Now, if we move on to the high-low, Arya will position your stop loss just above the previous high if it is that you're shorting the market. If you want to go long, i.e. you want to buy, Arya will place your stop loss just below the previous candle, the candle's low. And that will obviously make sure that if there is a trend that's going in the right direction, then you're not stopped out because it's just underneath the previous. The pips down here, Arya secures the profit with a trailing stop determined in pips. So this will activate in accordance to the percentage that you define in the activation take profit distance outlined here, once the level is reached. So if you choose 20% and 10 pips, once the market has actually achieved that 20% of the way between your entry point and the take profit, then the follower will follow the market by 10 pips. So that's just making sure that it can track and continue to keep taking profit once you've got as far as you are satisfied within this parameter outlined just here. And if we move now onto the break-even point, what will happen here is as your trade passes from the entry point, it's, let's say, going in the right direction, you know you're following the trend, your stop loss will jump within to the break-even point to which you entered the market. And that's such that if the market's going in your direction, but there's then a correction, your stop loss is there at your break-even point, just to make sure that you do break even and you don't take a loss in the market. Now, on the combo fractal, this combines two trailing modes. That's the break-even and the fractal itself up here. Now, what Arya will do is firstly secure your gains by shifting the stop loss to confirm the fractals in your profit zone, and will also shift the stop loss to the break-even point when the market has traveled 50% from the path between your price of entry and your take profit. And it could be that you want slightly more than 50% or slightly less. That again can be activated here. Now, coming on to the last couple of trailing modes, we have the combo pips. That combines the trailing mode of pips and break even, both these two here. Again, very similar story. The MA207, that will close the trade when the two moving averages of both 20 and 7 periods intersect in a profit zone. Now, you obviously have to remember to display these two moving averages on your graph using the templates. or equally, you can just choose none. Now, the next parameter we need to look at is the trailing time frame. So that allows you to define the time on which unit you want the tracking mode to be. So if you choose current, naturally you enter on a 1 hour, you want to track the 1 hour, so you would then set this to current, where it would be the 1 hour. Now you can play around with this, and it could be that you want your stop loss to be trailing on a slightly larger time frame or a slightly smaller time frame, and that again is all due to your customization here. So for example, it is possible to choose an entry in position in 1 minute, but a dragging mode, let's say fractal, which will naturally trail, which takes into account the fractals of the 1 hour. So that definitely has its advantages there. Now looking at the activation take profit distance, that will work with, as I mentioned before, the trailing break-even mode, the partial close, and can all be adjusted here as per the previous examples. Now we're moving on to the partial close, both true and false options here. If it is that you have it set on true, now this parameter works in conjunction with the activation take profit distance. So for the partial close, if it is set on true and you have it at, let's say, 60% on this activation take profit distance and true, Arya will cut half of the position and secure the gains when 60% of the path is covered between the entry point and the take profit. So that just allows you to secure those gains, depending on how close you are to the goal that is you want to be achieving. Now, the partial close indivisible, again, both true or false options here. If you choose true and the position is too small, Arya will not divide the position. Otherwise it would be obliged to just close it completely. But if you choose false, Arya will completely cut the position if it is too small. So more relevant for those guys on the slightly smaller trading sizes, trading accounts. Now, as we move further down into step 4, we look at some of the advanced settings. Now, these advanced settings look more at the logistics of your trading. Obviously, there are different strategies out there regarding, it could be scalping, could be swing trading, you could just be in a position for an awfully long time, and each element has to be very well managed. So when we look here, firstly at the advanced settings, we have the trend filter. So this trend filter, 4 different options: dual, pivot point, moving average, or false. Now, this filters the direction based on a moving average or pivot point, or in fact, a combination of the two. Now, with the moving average, for example, the moving average filter would be applied to the entry logic time frame parameter up in step 1. Now, the moving average is taken into account and will be that of the time unit that you have chosen. So where I mentioned that you could be on a 1 hour, but you want to enter on a 5 minute, those are the time parameters that come into play. So either a defined unit or the time unit of the graph in which you're actually viewing, if you chose current. Now, the filter will depend on the direction chosen, buy or sell. Now, to define the moving average, you must configure that MA period, moving average period, and take that into account. Now, if we look onto the pivot point, the filter will depend on the direction chosen, either buy or sell. So for example, if your trend filter over here is highlighted as pivot points and on Arya, and you've gone for a buy, you want to long the currency pair or asset class that you've chosen, Arya will only identify the buy signals above the pivot point, and that being very much the average of the day, based down here. Or you can go for dual, and that will blend the 2 filters of the moving average and the pivot point itself to find the most convincing and the best entry positions for you. When we look down at the level filter here, false or true. two different choices. If you want to activate it and click true, that will define an area in which Arya will look for entry points. So you must then leave the level high, the upper bound, and the level low, being the lower bound, as parameters here, and allow Arya to be able to identify some really good trades for you and execute those if you're not at your desk, if you're on a coffee break, or if you're busy doing some work. So we look then at the market close. So if you choose true from the two options here, Arya will automatically close all of your open positions 5 minutes before the market closes. Naturally, to make sure that you're not in the market over the weekend, which again, very similar to this parameter here. This will cut all the orders and positions in progress 5 minutes before the market closes on a Friday. It could be market close, you want to keep it open for a day, but you don't want to be trading over the weekend because we know that there's an awful lot of news that can come out. So you might put your market close, stick this on false, because you don't mind trading between a Monday to a Thursday, but on a weekend, absolutely not. So you can outline those parameters there. The clock filter, this is the time filter to frame your trading. So Arya will only take into account the opportunities to enter the positions within your other parameters from the configured time. Now the clock rewind could work very much in your favor, in that if it is that you're looking to trade within certain hours, what Arya will be able to do is, before you log in and before you're able to actually execute a trade, it can begin to highlight some really good trading opportunities for you. So if you do put that on true, what it is doing is understanding where it is really to get you off to the best start of the day. Now, looking at the timer filter, this is the duration filter to time your trading. And this will, I will say, only work within visual mode, where you have both the options of buy and sell activated on the Arya screen when that's present. So you must enter the number of minutes in time filter minutes, just down here. We'll enter this on true. Now at the end of the timer, Arya will deactivate. So even if a trade is in progress, it will be managed according to your stop loss, take profit, or trailing mode. But be informed that if no trade has been triggered, Arya will deactivate and not take any new trades. So that's just the duration to which you want Arya to be trading. And that obviously has its own implementations, but very much helps you customize that there. Looking at the close all, at the end of the clock filter or the time filter, Arya will just close all pending orders, as well as the current positions of the instruments to which you're trading, and which all the parameters apply. If it is false, as it is highlighted now, at that case, the end of the time filter, Arya just will not open any further positions, but it won't close any current positions too. Now looking at the display dashboard, that allows you to display the red performance dashboard, or you can make that disappear, and we'll keep that on just so you can see what that is in a second here. But if you've chosen, say we click this through, obviously true or false, as I mentioned, keep that on, show value dashboard here. This will show your returns and your progress, both of your pips and your percentage, both in either dollars, your currency, or the percentage. So we'll click on default just so you get a good idea as to both of these sitting side by side. So you can see here when we have Arya activated on your current window, I have the USD Japanese yen up here. So this will be your percentage performance, both daily, daily, weekly, monthly. Also a small trend indicator. I am doing this on the weekend, so the market is closed So no progress or nothing to see here, unfortunately. But a few of these fractal indicators, and this again is, if it is you're choosing your display dashboard, that will show your results as dollars. Now, we'll move into the Arya Trade Manager. So we can take Pro, we can remove that from our screen. Go. Now, as we move into Arya Trade Manager, just drag and drop this here. With Arya Pro, you can't enter 2, 3, 4, any multiple trades within 15-minute on gold. You can have one 15-minute on gold, you could have one on 30-minute on gold. But you can't necessarily have more than one active trade within a specific asset class and time frame. Now, Arya Trade Manager allows you to be able to do that. So if you've got a really exciting asset class within a great time frame, you want to make sure you're kind of activating and managing that as much as possible. Now, you do have to take the take profit as break even, but obviously that can all be managed further down in the execution. But firstly, you'll see the parameters exactly the same, the risk per trade, anything between 0.15 straight up to 2. The max daily loss, again, 2%, not changeable. Really making sure that we're enforcing that positive discipline with your trading strategy. Now, we'll look at the equity calculation. Again, it's true or false. And step 2, when we look at the trade execution, so for each parameter, you do have to define a value. So we'll take, let's just take this for example. So we're here around R4. This is the fourth resistance. And firstly, we'll look at a stop loss, just for example, 109, let's say. Now, a break even, we'll put this as 109, that in there. Take profit, we can put as 111. We'll have the weight. This weight has to be equal to 100%, naturally, as a percentage. Now, there are 3 ways in which you can split this up here. So you either have the weight first 50%, and then obviously weight 2 is going to be 25 and 25. But this is where it will begin to take a profit of X amount, i.e. 50, 25, or 25, depending on when you get there. So if it is that you believe it's obviously rising, you want your take profit, again, let's say 112, for example, and let's put take profit 3 at 113. So you have a series of different take profits. Could be that you fancy a bit of a should we say a longer take profit. You want to make sure you kind of take the most profit at the later stages. You obviously up the weight 3, and that will count for the percentage. But we'll go for initially 50, 25, 25. So stop loss, your break even, take profit 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you want to use only 2 take profits and you just want 50 and 50, that's absolutely fine. Just put 0% in here and you would clear take profit 3. Very much as simple and as easy as that, but making sure that this is accounted up to 50% here. 50 and 50, always need to make sure that this is 100 here. Now, with step 3, there are various settings. Firstly, the partial close, indivisible. As mentioned before, false, true. Display dashboard, again, true. That will outline the red Arya interface that we saw earlier, and then the value dashboard in either percentage or dollar terms. We'll put it in dollar this time, just to give you a slightly different idea. We activate that there, and here we are. So parameters very much outlined. Now, the important notes that we need to take into account here is that the Arya Trade Manager will calculate the maximum risk if you have also launched trades with Arya Pro, and vice versa, just to make sure you're not teetering over that edge of 2, 3, 4, 5% per daily loss, because that's obviously not a situation that you want to be in, and it's extremely difficult to begin coming back from there, because you need to leverage more of your account in order to get those same returns. Now, you can use Arya Trade Manager and Arya Pro on the same asset. You just have to open 2 different charts of the same asset to put Arya Trade Manager on one chart and Arya Pro on the other chart. Now, finally, the Trade Manager allows you to take several trades, as I mentioned, at the same time on the same asset class, only if the current trade is secure at break even. So once that's secure, it will then allow you to take further. Now, we'll quickly cancel this Arya Trade Master. Up, Arya Essentials. Arya Essential input, very much the essential, boiled down, most simple version to which we can make sure we're still accessing the key benefits from Arya, but naturally in a boiled down fashion. So these are exactly the same parameters as Arya Pro, but just a little bit less of them. So as you see, looking firstly at the positions mode in the trade direction, buy, sell, visual mode, very familiar with that by now. We can then change the risk per trade, maximum daily loss, again, set at 2%. Daily profit, consecutive wins or losses. We then still have, because it's so good to be able to adjust some of the stop loss types, fixed or volatility, and again, volatility, just like choosing a t-shirt size, small right through up to XXL. Put ourselves on medium. If you do go fixed, this is where you're outlining that here. We're equally looking at a profit factor. Now, step 4, we're very familiar with these settings here. Trend filter, depending on your MA period, level high, level lows, for those regions to which you want Arya to trade in, usually very advantageous for if there is a breakout. Clock filter and start or end time, display dashboard, and show value dashboard. So we've run through an awful lot of these parameters so far. We'll activate Arya Essentials here. As you can see, Arya Essential, very much looking similar to the other two, both the Trade Manager and Pro that we've been through. So really what we're wanting you to take away from this is that depending on the time that you have to set this up, depending on your particular strategy and the way in which you trade as an individual, we want to make sure that there's something here for you. Now, yes, at the beginning of the week or at the weekend, when you set yourself up, it's best to go on Arya Pro. You can play around with some of the parameters to which you want to be trading in this coming week. You get your plan together, you set this up, and if it is that you are setting this up in the right way, Expert Advisor will remove this. Now, when you are setting yourself up, if you do come onto a really good set of parameters for a particular currency pair or asset, then you can save those said parameters, load them up. It might be DAX number 2 in the morning. You have your parameters, you know exactly what you want, and then you take that through, hit yourself OK, and then you're ready to trade the markets. It's as simple as that. Now that's what we're really making sure that everybody can have access to these financial markets and make sure that you're very well prepared. So look, if there are any questions, then we would love to hear from you. Obviously, we want to keep having that great feedback coming back to us. And if there's any way in which we can assist you and help take your trading to the next level, then that's something that we want to know about. But until next time, I hope to hear from you again. And I want to wish you all the best in your trading with Arya. We'll speak soon. Take care.